Hi, in this video I will be talking about mindful awareness. More specifically, I will be talking about what it is and in which ways we can practice it, and why is it so difficult to practice it sometimes. So what is mindful awareness? Basically, it is the state of paying attention to everything that is happening in the present moment, and to have an attitude of acceptance and curiosity to that which we are observing, whether those things are inside of us or outside of us. And when it comes to things inside of us, our thoughts, our feelings, the way that we are reacting, it's about looking with an attitude of compassion without identifying ourselves with those things, and just with an attitude of openness and acceptance. So for example, if we feel angry about something, is about observing that anger instead of thinking that I am that anger or I am sadness. I'm not any of those things. Those things are happening to me, and they come and go, and I see as they come and go through my life. And when I talk about anger, I talk also about happiness. It's about creating a sort of distance between us, the observer, and those things, so that instead of being very reactive to all that happens to us, we can have a more centered, more grounded posture towards life. The reason why it's so difficult to be mindful is because the mind has the tendency to either be reliving things that happen in the past, and we are constantly going back to those things, or planning what is going to happen in the future, or expecting things to happen in the future. So it's very rarely that we are content with what is happening in the present moment. We are constantly either in the past or in the future, but very rarely are we really in the now. And the practice of mindfulness is to keep bringing our mind and our attention back to the now over and over again. But because the mind has this tendency to either go towards the past or go towards the future, because the mind has this tendency, it's not always easy to focus on the present. So there are some things that you can do to kind of keep practicing this, because just like a muscle, this is something that can be strengthened over time the more you practice. And also because as you practice, you will become more aware of what it actually looks like to be aware in the present moment. One of the things that is kind of like fundamental when we talk about mindfulness is to pay attention to how we are breathing. This is an absolute essential practice. This is the practice that we are strengthening when we are meditating, and I will be going there in a moment. But basically, the breath is very much connected with our emotional state. So the more you become aware of how you are breathing, the more you will become aware of your internal state, your emotional state, and how you are reacting to things. So it is quite important to kind of switch on that attention to our own breath and not just breathe in like autopilot as we always do. So this is something that you can do every day, all the time. You can bring your attention to your breath. You can see, am I breathing deeply? Am I breathing in a shallow way? And if you want to take this practice a little bit further, you can actually, place your attention on the entrance of the nostrils, and maybe you come to a point where you start seeing that actually you're breathing more in one nostril than the other. You can see that, are you breathing more in the top of your chest, or is your belly also expanding when you breathe in? So there's a lot of things that you can observe when you are trying to observe your breath. And there will come a time where it's automatic that you feel, I'm breathing really shallow, and that's because I'm probably very stressed about something, and let me take a deep breath in. Another thing that you can do in your normal days is to pay attention to your posture and to see how you are positioning yourself. Is your spine straight and tall, or are you kind of like sinking into yourself? And of course, you should not be like tensed throughout the day, but to cultivate this posture of having the chest a bit more open and to kind of like reach up to the stars through the top of your head, it's actually something very good that you can remind yourself maybe when you're, waiting in line for something or just walking, because there is a connection between your posture and the way you feel. So if you're walking in a, with your chest down and looking down, that will make you feel in a way that is much different than if you're walking with your chest open and, looking up. That will make you feel different also, better. And by the way, since we are talking about walking, you can also practice mindfulness and see, how are you walking? Are you walking, one of the things look at, like, to try to feel each step that you're taking, so that you feel your feet touching the ground, how they are touching, the heel moving through towards the toes, and like anything that you can place your attention that it's more connected to the now, that will help you. Another thing that we all do every day is to eat. So that is also an excellent practice of mindfulness when you are eating, that you're not doing anything else except eating, and that you can be very mindful of how the food tastes in your mouth, all the texture, all the smells, and everything that is connected with that experience of that meal is something that can be a great focus for you. And this has an enormous impact also on how you're going to develop your eating habits, the choices you make for the food that you take into your body. So how each food makes you feel, so you start like choosing differently. This is a fantastic way to practice mindfulness, and one that has excellent results as well. So all of these things that I'm talking, these are informal practices. These are things that you can practice in your everyday life, that you're not like setting a time aside to do these things. These are things you can do anytime, anywhere, and that can really have an impact on your ability to be mindful. But then, of course, there is the formal practice, and that formal practice would be to set some time aside to meditate. For many people, meditation has this kind of like aura of being something very esoteric and very difficult, and like the thing I hear the most is, oh, I can't meditate because my mind won't stop. And the truth is, if you're one of these people that say this, the truth is that the mind doesn't stop for anyone. So what we try to do with meditation, or what we are proposing ourselves to do when we are meditating, is to give a time to ourselves to observe ourselves and observe our mind and observe the breath and observe the posture, and to kind of like tune in the attention inwards, so that we take that moment to be solely with ourselves. So if your mind is running from place to place, from thought to thought, that's fine. You should not become frustrated with it. You should just say, okay, I see, my mind is running. That's fine. If you are very tired and you feel like sleeping, you say, okay, I'm really tired and I really feel like sleeping and this is quite hard. That's fine. But while you are having these thoughts and while you are having these observations, there is also moments when you say, when you place your attention gracefully on the inhalation, on the exhalation, and for maybe a split of a second, you're not having a thought, you're just there. And that is the practice, that you're there. You're proposing yourself to be there, and whatever comes, it's fine, because for those 5, 10, 20 minutes, that's what you are doing. You are meditating, being with yourself, observing yourself, your mind, and giving yourself and your brain that very deserved rest, and you are improving a skill that is incredibly beneficial for your life, and which will bring you lots of benefits that you will see once you practice. So that is it for a very quick video about mindful awareness. This is a topic that is highly, highly dear to me, because I know how beneficial it can be to practice this mindful awareness. It is very much at the root of well-being. So I would have much more to say, but let's stop here. And as I talked, there are many ways that you can be mindful throughout your day, so I highly encourage you to turn on that switch of mindfulness and say, let me look at myself a little bit more often. Yeah, so next week, in the sequence of what we are talking, I will be talking about how to switch off the autopilot, which is pretty much the opposite of being mindful, is that we are constantly on autopilot throughout our lives. So next week I will be talking about this autopilot and how we can switch it off intentionally. So tune in next week if you'd like to see that one.